This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
Hello and welcome to this preview / recap edition of Red Side of the Trent as we look ahead to Nottingham Forest's fourth round FA Cup tie against Exeter City, which is very exciting. We'll have an Exeter fan for you in due course. But before then, I'm joined by Adam Wicklow. So Adam, how are you?
Yes, good mate. I know you missed out on being on the pod after Sunday.
My
Saturday, should I say, on
very
Sunday.
rudely ignored.
I know, yeah. I just have to go through that much. I completely forgot as the host. So it's good that we can talk about it now before we speak to the Exeter fan, your mate.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So, I mean, it's still weird. Obviously, I've noticed Forest been churning the content out of the match day pass and bench cam and that sort of stuff. It still doesn't seem real that we were beat a team 7-0 in the Premier League. But lo and behold, we did. And yeah, it's looking very good. But I suppose we better start with the transfer window as we'll look at that as a mini recap. So Forest didn't do anything really. I mean, well, by their standards. So 20-year-old Tyler Bindon signed from Reading. He's on loan for them for the rest of the season. The Athletic said that it was a nominal fee because he's out of contract in the summer. The Reading fans seem to believe he's on the same level as, Omar Richards and Michael Elise in terms of the best players they've seen in recent years, which is obviously a very good sign. And they also signed, is it Ndula, is that how you pronounce his name? From Manchester City on loan, with a view to a £4 million permanent fee as well. So, Adam, were you expecting any more fireworks, i.e. Cunha-shaped fireworks or Wisher-shaped fireworks, or were you pretty happy with just Forest being very quiet and looking to the future?
Yeah, I don't think it was always going to be our difficult window. We both said that, didn't we? Along with the other guys who come on the pod, because everyone wants to keep their best players. The only players that you really want are people who are playing regular football, especially when you're nearer the top of the league, I guess. Because if it was mid-table or lower, it's a bit of a different situation. You might look at a fringe player or a bench player that's not playing so much at a better club, but we're not really in that position. So it was going to always be difficult. I think Wolves wanted a lot of money for Cunha with his contract situation. Now he's signed a new contract anyway with a release clause. I think the strikers we were linked with, Visser is doing well at Brentford. That was always going to be a difficult one, even though he's got 18 months left. That's a bit of a risk for them. But quite like that, we poked the bear almost a little bit. And then Douglas Luiz, I think that was more of a pawn in that situation overall. But I think we've matured as a club. I think that's how you have to kind of look at it. We've not rushed. We've not done anything crazy. I think keeping the squad together has been the main thing, because obviously it come out that Chelsea tried to put in a record signing fee in for Murillo, and we've just battered them back away from him. So I think it's good that we've kept people in. And the two biggest signings this month were Wood and keeping Murillo, for contract extensions for them both. And now we just need to see that the same for a couple of other players, don't we?
Yeah, that's it. I think I know a lot of our fans are very frustrated, sort of saying like, naturally you get the hyperbolic responses of how the season's going to be over now because what if Wood gets injured. But I mean, as Reece made the point in our chat like earlier this week, if you look at, say, especially now, if Haaland gets injured for City, they're going to be screwed, aren't they? If Watkins gets injured for Villa, it's the same for them, especially now Duran's gone. If Havertz gets injured for Arsenal, they've got no one there. If any team loses their best striker to injury, it's generally not good news. I don't know why we're sort of making out it's an exception for us. I think, yeah, generally speaking, as you said, the best bit was getting these playing time down. The important thing now for me is, to see Hudson-Odoi get a contract extension, to see Gibbs White get a contract extension, to see Williams get a contract extension the way he's playing. These are things need to be sort of ironed as well. Of course, these are the ones that need to take priority now. But yeah, I mean, it was quite funny sort of saying that.
How much of a turnaround has Nico Williams had? I mean, we just mentioned it in our group chat maybe an hour or so ago, and you're like, I think we've got an On This Day coming out. It might be already out as we're doing this podcast. I'm not sure, but you were like, oh, Nico Williams stinking up the gaff, and you were like, if we'd lost that game, you'd have sold him to Mansfield at a loss. Now you're like, you need to sign him a new contract. I mean, that is something for you, especially Christian, because you were always adamant that he wasn't good enough for us when we signed him for £17 million. Now he's you can't take him out of the team. He has firmly took that left back spot and made it his own, whether he's playing left wing back or left back. He's come on such leaps and bounds, and I would not be shocked if he's our most improved player at the end of the season in our little mini awards that we do. I mean, it'll be tight because there's a lot of players Nuno seems to have improved.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I've always said I'd rather be wrong on me being critical and a Forest transfer than be right, because no one wants that. No one wants another Matt Turner where the whole world and Stevie Wonder can see it's not going to be a terrible idea. But if you told me after that first season that Williams would be still at the club now, I'd assume he'd be a Championship side, genuinely, because he was awful. And I think we sort of overlooked this, and people overwrite history about this. He went into our second season as a Premier League club as fourth choice right back. I mean, there was talk for him going on loan to Leeds and all sorts of things, even as recently as like last January. So, his turnaround has been absolutely remarkable because he's undroppable now at left back. There's no way of getting around it. We've got actual, a designated left back, a left-footed left back from Moreno, who just sat on the bench, who can't get a kick at the minute, and fairly so because of Williams' form. So, yeah, it's a hell of a turnaround for him, and long may it continue. Give him a 5-year contract and hope he improves, because we're now seeing, what we thought we were getting from the very start.
Why do you think he is better at left back than right back? Because it's just such a strange kind of scenario almost. I don't know if it's like because you're playing inverted wingers and therefore they're cutting in on to his strongest side or what. I don't know, because defensively he's much better for one. He's better going forward because he can use both feet pretty well. Like his left foot is not that. It's not awful, I would say, by any stretch. But I think you have to give credit to not only him for like digging in deep and kind of keep going, but Nuno for his coaching, and then the rest of the team have just been brilliant. I think having Murillo next to him is also very good. Who can come and cover and everything else. So like our defensive structure is so much better. Anderson comes over and helps him a lot, or Danilo, or Yates, or Dominguez, whoever's in there, kind of all chip in for whichever side need it. But it's fantastic. But I did want to ask you about Saturday though, Christian, because you obviously missed out. What was going through your mind, especially when Mark Verbruggen's passed the ball to Jota Silva to make it 7, and how funny is it that they're getting in of like the publicity they've had is bloody brilliant, by the way. That pub, Forrest have gone to visit him and give him a shirt and everything. It's quite fun. Very funny.
I saw McGovern go down there. That was good. Yeah, mental. I mean, I thought it'd be more. Once Jota scored that, I thought we've still got 9 minutes left, and the way we're playing and the way they folded, it could well be more than 7. I think we had a corner not long after, didn't we? Which I think caused a bit of havoc in the box, and then sort of didn't materialize into anything. But it's just surreal. It was, I think, like I said, the way we all wanted a response. That was a response in some. That's how a good team bounces back. And I think we have to accept that we are a good side. As much as we try and underplay it, as much as we try and say that, get stung by Forest, PTSD or whatever else, we are a good side. And it's just so nice watching it happen. And I'm so excited to see where this team can go. The guy, by the way, I absolutely butchered his name. It's Joel Ndala from Manchester City, who we've signed on loan. So, he looks to be very much in a sort of Hudson-Odoi cutting sides from the left wing moles. Apparently it wasn't that long ago he was training with Man City's first team. I don't know what's gone on there. But, we've been a pretty good home for second chance saloon for people like Hudson-Odoi, of course, Elanga, a few others, Williams especially, as we just touched upon. So maybe he can be the next one. Who knows?
I've seen loads of PSV fans because I thought he was playing for their first team when I first heard that we took this loan on. So I was like, well, I've never heard of the kid, and then it turns out he's playing for their B side.
Yeah, John PSV
Jong, and he's stinking out the gaff. He's not been very good. So It's interesting to see. Maybe we're just having a closer look at him before making a decision, which is fine. Extra wing option, although I was hoping he was a left-footed right winger, if anything. So it does make it a little bit, kind of a bit. What I don't know what the point is, but maybe Nuno doesn't trust Sosa enough, or I mean, I thought Sosa would have come on in that 7-0 win at some point, and he didn't come on at all. So I don't know what's gone on there. I feel sorry for him a little bit, but
he's still up there. I think that's the main thing. I think had we, for example, looked to move him on, I think that would have happened by now. So I suspect he will get his chance. I imagine he, as we'll come on to very shortly next game, I suspect he'll start in that. And speaking of the Exeter game, I'm delighted to be joined by Jamie, who is an Exeter City Trust member, I believe. Firstly, how are you, Jamie?
Hi guys, I'm very well, thanks. How are you both?
Good, thank you. Cheers for coming on.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jamie. I know League One is a struggle these days for you boys. Christian just reiterated to me that you've not won since Boxing Day, and then we're going to roll into town, and we might be Chariot FC for the day. Who knows?
Yeah, it's a strange feeling because we've got this amazing, historic FA Cup game coming up, but we'll be going into it the worst team in the league in terms of form. Haven't won in the league, as Chris says, since Boxing Day. Our only win this year was in the FA Cup, actually, against Oxford. So, yeah, mixed emotions, really. But I'm feeling more relieved, I think, because we're not playing now until next Tuesday, like Forest as well. Our last game was Saturday, which was a 4-1 defeat at Stevenage. So hopefully now we've got, a 10-day gap to sort of recover and train and hopefully prepare for what should be a memorable night.
I suppose before we actually start, so those long-time listeners who recognise Dave from the Chelsea fan, Dave and Chelsea fan, I should add. So me, Dave, and Jamie lived together at university, so that's how we all know each other. So you're completing the athlete contingent, which is all we need now to play Forest Green, and we'll be sorted.
It sounds like a terrible joke, doesn't it? Like a Forest fan, an Exeter fan, and a Chelsea fan all walk into a bar kind of thing.
And a Forest Green fan.
It sounds horrible.
Yeah. But yeah, Jamie, I mean, it's weird because you started so well. It seemed that, you at worst case this season, it looked like you'd just be a sort of floating mid-table team in League One, but your form's drastically dropped. I mean, I know it's you just sold Ali to Luton for £1.5 million as well, as they did the classic Bournemouth thing, but rather than sign Championship Avengers, they signed the League One Avengers. Their attempt to stay up. And yeah, I mean, what has gone wrong? Because it all seems to be going pretty well.
Yeah, we had a flying start to the season, and we had at one point we had the best defense in the league. I think I did make a stat actually that stood out, which kind of sums us up at the moment. Until November the 23rd last year, we conceded 10 goals in the league. Since then, we've conceded 35. So, which, I think to say the defence is an issue would be quite an understatement. Look, without wanting to go full Ange, we've had a lot of injuries. Which doesn't help, of course. Our centre-backs, we had Tristan Crammer on loan from Brentford, who was probably our best defender on paper. But he got recalled in January and has since been sold to Millwall, so that was a big loss. We had another one, John Lee Yafeko, on loan from Rangers, who had an injury, came back and is injured again, and I think is out for the season. And our captain, Pierce Sweeney's been out for a while as well. So, yeah, we've literally had our centre-backs ripped apart. And, the Blackpool game a couple of weeks ago, we played two centre midfielders at centre-back and we were 3-0 down at half-time. So it's been, it's not just that we're losing, we're getting battered. We've conceded 13 goals in the last 3 games. And Burnley in the Championship are conceding 9 all season. Which, but look, we've brought in 2 defenders on deadline day. Angus MacDonald, who's an experienced centre half. He's been around the EFL for a bit. He was at Hull and other clubs. He's recently at Aberdeen. And Ed Turns, another sort of journeyman a little bit. He's still quite young, but he's been out on loan a few times. We signed him for Brighton. So finally, we've got some bodies in. And going back to what I said earlier, now we've got the gap until the Forest game. Hopefully they can, they've got time to train and bed in. And but yeah, it's not been a pleasant few weeks for us, which, like I said earlier, it's a weird feeling going into this massive game next week.
What's mental, Jay? We're just looking at the league. You're 7 points above the relegation zone still, but you're only 12 points still away from the playoff spots. And like within the Football League, there's always some sort of weird thing that happens where it only takes a little bit of a run for teams to go on, and they catch right back up. So at least like the good start hasn't put you in such a dangerous spot at the moment. I know 7 points is not a lot really in terms of football, because as an Everton fan said to us when we first called them up, it only takes 3 games to be in a crisis. Obviously, Exeter in a bit more of a dodgy situation. Is this a welcome distraction from the league for yourselves, or is still your goal as a football club to stay up in League One and cement yourself for next season there?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think, look, we'll definitely look forward to it. Look, the FA Cup is a magical competition, especially for like lower league clubs like ourselves. We've got so much history with it. 20 years ago, we played Man United, which saved our existence, and we drew at Old Trafford, and we got the replay down here. We held Liverpool a few years ago and got the replay at Anfield. So, we've had some wonderful moments in the Cup, and I think it will be a good distraction for everyone, for Gary, the manager, the players, the fans. And it's a free hit. We just want to enjoy it. Obviously, results have not been going well, and obviously, you guys will be going into it on the back of a 7-0 win. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But, these sorts of runs, these games can sort of spark a resurgence in form sometimes, and hopefully that will pave the way for a strong end to the season, because we really need it, and we've got some really crucial fixtures coming up. We're playing teams in and around us after the Forest game, so hopefully next Tuesday night will be the start of a nice end to the season.
Yeah, so it's the first time in 44 years that Exeter have made the 4th round of the Cup. And you've not got Barry for once, which I imagine will be quite nice for you, seeing as you seem to be paired with them every single cup you're going. I'm just sort of looking at obviously the stats from the outside. Obviously, selling Ali seems a massive blow, really. Obviously, with 9 goals this season, your top scorer. Next top scorer is McGuinness with 4. And then obviously, I know a few people recognised Dimitri Mitchell from social media. I think was the United kid once upon a time, and then scored a few crucial goals in cup games with Exeter, sort of thing. But I suppose where would you say? Because I can't imagine this being a game where, whereas Forest quite thrive in not having the ball, I imagine this would be a game where Exeter would be quite happy not to have the ball, sort of thing, in defence. Is that a fair assessment, or do you think you'll try and go gung ho for it?
Well, we have dominated the ball in recent games. We do like to dominate possession, but based on recent results, that doesn't really count for much. Yeah, it's quite a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a modern approach to the way we play. I think passing out from the back, the back 3 with wing backs is obviously what a lot of teams do these days. So when it's going well, it looks great, obviously, but when we're trying to pass it around, when we're 2-0 down or something, it's not the best look. And I think the most frustrating thing for me and quite a few fans is that we don't really adapt when things aren't going our way. I think Gary still seems to keep persisting on playing out from the back, even though it seems clear in the stands that it's not working. So yeah, it'll be interesting how we approach it, especially against a Forest team, with Nuno in charge, what sort of approach they'll make as well. So I think I can imagine, though, against a Premier League team, we'll probably sit back. But, who knows? I just don't want to see us playing out from the back. And then we've got players, I don't know what the team will be, obviously, but like Chris Wood or Morgan Gibbs-White chasing the ball down, because that could go very, very badly. So it'll be an interesting approach. But hopefully, I would like to see it changed up a bit if things aren't going that well,
You mentioned Wood and Gibbs White. I can't really see them play. I don't know about Christian, but because we made 11 changes against Luton and they all performed pretty admirably, and we've got the likes of Danilo and Sangari coming back who need match sharpness and match fitness, etc., and players who have not played. It's going to be an interesting game because I think if you're playing like a different side in the Premier League, you're like, well, we're not going to have a lot of the ball. Maybe the pitch will be a little bit ripped up and so forth, and a bit of gamesmanship there where you go, right, we'll make it really difficult for them to play football, whereas we're quite direct. So it's a bit of a different approach, I guess, for Exeter of how you go about this. Like, do you let us have the ball? I really don't get how it's going to go because it's such a strange proposition almost. We are very old-fashioned with how we play from back to front, and I believe it's like the first meeting of Forest and Exeter since the 1950s or something ridiculous. I know there's a lot of people who are going to be ticking off Exeter for the 92, especially who are going down.
Yeah, I think one of the first things I said to Chris was certainly not in our lifetimes we've played each other, but in fact it was back in the 50s. I mean, like Chris said earlier, it's the first time we've been in this round of the competition for 44 years. So the chances of playing Forest, obviously you guys have been in the higher leagues for quite some time, and the highest we've been is League One. So yeah, it's going to be a special night, under the lights as well. I wasn't at first when it was announced as a Tuesday night, I was a little unhappy with it, but it's under the lights. I don't know about you guys, but football under the lights it just hits different. And hey, the last time we played a Premier League team at home under the lights was Luton Town last season in the EFL Cup, and we beat them 1-0. So who knows?
Oh, plucky little Luton, hey? I won't go away. But I'm just saying. So it's the first time since 1951 that Forest go to Exeter. It was in Division 3 South then, and Forest won that day 5-0. So hoping for your sake that isn't a repeat scoreline. But it's I think it's definitely set up. I think another thing, touching what Adam said, I don't think you'll see the main boys as such because we've got Fulham 5 days later, and given Fulham one of the teams that sort of had our number in the first part of the season, I'd be very surprised if we sort of went full strength in both. I feel had it been on the weekends, you probably would have seen a full strength Forest side, and maybe but like the keeper because does take the cup quite seriously. But I think given the congestion, it might be a bit different. But what sort of team do you expect him to play? Do you think in terms of personnel?
For us, I think it'll be. I expect it to be a fully strength side. The interesting thing for me would be to see if any of the new players play or start. I imagine they'll play at some point, but like I said, the two centre backs we signed, McDonald and Turns, I'd expect at least one of them to be thrown into the side. We don't really. The only thing that I was concerned about in the transfer window was we sold Ali quite late, and we haven't signed another centre forward. So our only recognised centre forward really is Josh McGuinness, who is a name a lot of people might recognise. He's a bit of a journeyman. In the latter stages of his career, I'd say he's got 80 caps in Northern Ireland, and he's quite an old-fashioned centre forward. Holds the ball up quite well. But we signed a new guy, Andrew Olivero from Halifax, who has a lot of promise. And it's quite similar because we signed Ali from Halifax last January. So seems a bit of a like for like there. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Otherwise, I think it would be what we'd expect. Joe Whitworth is our goalie who's on loan for Crystal Palace, and expecting big things for him going forward. He's just one of those players. When you sign someone on loan from a higher club, you can tell that he's played at a higher level. So we got Ryan Trevitt back on loan, who's a centre midfielder from Brentford. We had him on loan last season, then he had quite a bad injury. But again, he's someone who just has that quality, who can make things happen, and he's an exciting player to watch. So that'll be interesting to see. Gary does like to go for attacking lineups. Like I said, it's free at the back, but getting those fullbacks involved is really important. He likes to get crosses in the box as well. So it'll be interesting to see how we approach it in terms of the attacking format, because I think he'll be wanting to give the supporters something to cheer about after the last few results haven't gone our way. So, but I think in the back of his mind, he'll be thinking, we've conceded a lot of goals, Forest are scoring lots of goals. So yeah, I'm excited. Now I'm talking about it, I'm actually getting more excited about it. So yeah, we'll see.
Forest score lots of goals. That's a new one for us, because we don't normally it's funny how our goal difference was like plus 11, and then I think we lost 5-0 to Bournemouth, and then went down, and then we've obviously banged 7, and we're now level on goal difference with Man City. What a crazy few games weeks. Is the game plan for Exeter to stay in the game as long as possible then, do you think, Jamie, or is it going to be try and nick a goal and defend for your lives? It's gonna, like I say, it's going to be a tricky one, because I don't know how we're going to go about it, and how yourselves are going to go about it, especially with you possibly being quite low on confidence, I guess. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. I think it would be natural to assume it would be the approach of like sitting back and trying to get them on a set piece, because that's like a classic FA Cup game, isn't it? When you're playing a higher team in the higher league. But obviously, it was a bit different. But when we played Oxford, who are obviously a league above us, we really went for it. It was beat them 3-1, and I think we treated that like it was just any other league game. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, this is, unfortunately, I wasn't at the Luton win last season, but again, it did sound like we really approached it like any other league game in terms of like attacking. So yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, we did go on a run of scoring quite a few set piece goals. In fact, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we've scored more set piece goals than from open play this season. So that'll be interesting to see. But then obviously, Nuno teams are set up very well defensively, aren't you? So yeah, it might be a cagey affair, who knows? But yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially as I suppose with the replays being scrapped. I mean, we can get onto that later if you want, how I feel about it. But obviously, it's it's a knockout game. We won't have that replay, so it'll be interesting to see. The longer the game goes on, if we're still in it, how the approach might change.
Yeah, that's definitely something to consider, of course. Keep getting that. Just looking at your recent form again, without wanting to be too, just out of curiosity. To be fair, I mean, yes, there have been some heavy defeats and stuff like that, but with the exception of the point away at Peterborough, I think every other team has been like quite far ahead of you, Iron Crawley, I guess. If you look at Wickham are flying, Bolton on the playoffs, well, goal difference keeping them out. Birmingham are flying. Blackpool are quite high up there. Leyton Orient are flying. So is it just a case of just getting a bit of like a Football Manager fixture list, if you like, and you play all the tough teams at once, and it sort of spreads out a bit for the rest of the season? Are you still a little bit, or do you think you'll be fine personally, or are you still a little bit concerned from what you've seen in terms of like the goals conceded aspect?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at those results, I think it's more the manner of them. The one that stood out to me was Blackpool, who have picked up a little bit of run by the looks of it. But I think before we played them a couple of weeks ago, they were below us in the table, quite out of form as well. And we were 3-0 down to them at half time. Crawley I know we pulled it back to 4-4, but we were 4-1 down at half time. You know, it's how we approach these games, and it's like I said, it's more the manner. The Leyton Orient game, look, they're absolutely flying. They're in the playoffs now, but to lose 6-2 at home to anyone's quite embarrassing, you know. So Stevenage as well, they're up there, but you know, to go 1-0 up and then sort of just absolutely collapses, it's more the manner of the results for me. Even the Birmingham game, I went to that St Andrews, we lost 1-0. They weren't, you know, everyone's talking about big spend in Birmingham, how they're going to walk the league. They weren't great, but we didn't have a shot in the whole game. So they're almost there for the taking. But do you know what I mean? It's the way we're approaching the games that I'm more concerned with. But like I said, we've got some big games coming up. I think after the Forest game, we've got Cambridge, who are bottom of the league, Northampton, Wigan. It's all teams in and around us. So it's going to be a really crucial few weeks for us. To answer your question, do I think we'll be fine? I think we will, based on those games we've got coming up. It's going to be really crucial. Like I said, this Forest game could really spark something special for us. You know, if we put in a great performance, take the confidence, and then move on to the next game, I do think we'll be okay. As Adam said earlier, there's a little bit of a gap. I mean, teams have got games in hand, but yeah. But you never know in football, do you? But then, like you said, the other way, you know, 12 points off the playoffs, 2 or 3 wins, all of a sudden, you know, it's looking rosy. So it's just the life of being a football fan, isn't it?
Just before we wrap up, Jamie, I do want to ask you about replays, because I've had a thought about this a lot, really, because especially when you play like computer games and everything, and you are a team that are supporting the side in the higher divisions, I guess. I've always thought like there should be an agreement between the two clubs, especially like, Joe, if you're playing a team from the same league, I think it's more beneficial. Like, yeah, let's just go to extra time or penalties straight away. Whereas obviously for the lower league sides, getting those replays can like change your team's financial future. Like you said about Exeter drawing Man United, it saved your club. I think like there should be a deal, whereas if the team in the league above want to scrap the replay, then there should be sort of financial benefit for the lower league team that they're going to miss out on. Do you know what I mean? Like almost buy them out of the replay, unless they strongly were like, no, we're having a replay. Like that's what we want to do, and then you do it. That's how I think it should go. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. You said you've got a strong opinion on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of it at all. I think given our history of the FA Cup, I'm a little more biased to it. But, you know, I go back to that Man United game. You know, we drew 0 at Old Trafford, and then we got them back at our place. And it's a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of supporters and the players at the time. You know, Fergie in the first leg played all the youngsters, but he took us seriously in the second leg, and we got to see Ronaldo and Rooney and Giggs, I think, played as well. It's, you know, these moments don't come too often for clubs like us. And then Liverpool, we had a few years later, we held them here at St James's Park, and then we got that dream replay at Anfield. You know, for a lot of people, they're not going to get to Anfield again. You know, it's taken away that special element of those dream away days. And look, this is going to be a fantastic tie and a memorable night for the club, whatever happens. But I almost would have rathered it was at the City ground, you know, because personally for me, it's a new ground to tick off. I know we've got more of a chance of doing something at home, but yeah, and then the chance to have that replay is taken away from us. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it should be a decision. I think if you play a team in the same division, it should just go all the way to penalties, because I don't think anyone really cares about, you know, playing a team in the same league, unless they do some sort of seeding like they do the Champions League. I don't know. It's all up in the air, and I just don't think it's fair that they just decided like straight away, that's it from the first round, no replays, see you later. It's not right in my books, in my opinion. It's just another decision that benefits the Premier League, the top clubs, because some managers have thrown the toys out of the pram about fixture congestion. We play 3 games a week, nearly every week, so, but yeah, I don't know.
On the flip side, though, you've also seen it in the past where the lower league side, I don't know, maybe like the higher teams had a player sent off, something's gone on, and then there's a chance where actually if it did go to extra time, they might actually beat them or whatever, or if they held them and went to penalties in that first initial game, they might have beat them in the lottery of penalties. You know what I mean? It can go both ways, but I completely agree with you in terms of the fan experience of it all and everything else. It's a little bit, it's selfish. Let's be honest, it is selfish, but also you have to look at what's happened with Europa, like with UEFA competitions as well, though, where they're playing way too many games now. They just want everyone to play ridiculous, like 60, 70 games a season. And it's completely unfair on players as well. It's just a complete cluster. I'm not going to say the F-bomb, but yeah, it is a cluster.
Yeah, I think we saw a few weeks ago, didn't we? Tamworth took Spurs to extra time, and Spurs just had that quality in the end to see it through. But Tamworth were denied an amazing replay at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I don't know, doesn't sit right with me.
No, I completely see that point. I think as well. I think when we think us last season, obviously we made very hard work of Blackpool, and it was sort of like, well, that's on us. We should have beaten them. I think that's the I understand like these managers kicking off and complaining, but ultimately you should be winning. That's your punishment for not winning that game. You go to a replay. That's on you for not being good enough over 90 minutes to beat a lower league team. The way I see it. But I think it would be fairer, taking the Tamworth example, if it went straight to pens after 90 minutes as well. I think that gives a bit more jeopardy towards it too, because it is stupid. I mean, look at the players Spurs are bringing on an extra time, and it's like these Tamworth players like dead on their feet, and there's world-class players just waltzing around them, and they're completely knackered. It doesn't really seem fair. It doesn't really add much of a spectacle, and it sort of takes away that magic. Whereas I think if you do say, fine, no replays, but straight to pens, if you fight for a draw, then you've got a shootout lottery, which sort of evens it up a little bit, I guess. But yeah, I do completely see where you're coming from in that regards. Just one other thing I wanted to ask too. So Exeter are very unique in the fact that they're the only fan-owned club in the country. Obviously, you're a part of the trust yourself. So what is it? How do you sort of find that? Do you think there's a sort of ceiling to where you can go, or do you think how do you sort of find the way that the club is run?
Yeah, I think the last couple of years, a lot of questions have been asked about, are we actually better off being fan owned compared to like having a Hollywood investment like Wrexham? The answer to it is I would much rather be supporter owned, by the way, having, seen what goes on with some owners. But I definitely think there is a bit of a ceiling. I think where we are based on budget and squad depth, etc., we are a mid-table League One club, and yeah, the longer that we stay in this league, the more, hoping we don't go down, of course, you start to wonder, where can we go? Can we actually get to the Championship? But on the flip side, we have seen teams like Wycombe did it a few years ago. They might do it again. I don't think they've got a massive budget, as far as I know. Leyton Orient as well was suddenly up there. So I think it can be done. But, in terms of how different it is, it's special in terms of every penny I put into this club, it feels like you're making a difference. Every pasty you buy, every pint that you buy, when you buy something from the shop, it feels like you're making a difference, like you're contributing to, could be anything. It could be to the wages, could be to the upkeep of the pitch. So it's a really unique club, and we're starting to see a few more clubs do it over here. I don't think it's going to be ever like what they've got in Germany, but there are, the only downside is, I think there is a bit of a ceiling, but I'm fine with that at the moment. I think some fans saying, well, Wycombe did it, so why can't we? And sometimes I agree with that, but sometimes you've got to be a little realistic in terms of, we're not splashing the cash on players. We are a selling club. We bring academy products through like Ollie Watkins and Ethan Ampadu, and then we sell them for profit, and then it goes back into the club. We've got a brilliant new training ground, which if you saw our training ground a few years ago, it's it's not what most clubs, even in non-league, would expect. So, and we've seen the development. We've got a new stand, we've got a new away end. So it's the little things that make the difference in terms of what you want as a football club. It's more of a community to me. Exeter's quite a small city anyway, but seeing the same people on the terraces and around the ground and helping out, it's really unique and it's really special. So it depends what your expectations are. If you think you can do a Luton and be in the Premier League, then you can dream on. Or would you rather have a financially stable, well-run, community-owned football club that, look, we might never be in the Premier League in my lifetime, but I'm okay with that because I know that we're never going to be run by some, businessman who doesn't care about football. They just want to make money, and let's face it, 9 times out of 10, it ends up going horribly wrong, doesn't it? So I'm more than happy with where we are.
It's a very fascinating outlook. I think you're very unique in that regards in the fan-owned club. I suppose Yeovil's maybe another example. They obviously got to the Championship, but again, the other side of the coin is look at them now having not been able to keep up with their progress. Obviously, they're having a non-league now, so it's a very difficult sort of balancing act to make. But before we let you go, what's your score prediction for Tuesday night's game?
Oh. Do I go with my head or my heart?
Both if you want.
They're two very different predictions. I think there will be goals. We do score quite a few at home. As far as I can remember, we've only had one game this season where we haven't scored at home. So, my head says, I don't know, a 3-1 defeat. But my heart says it's a sellout crowd. It's under the lights. The last time we played a Premier League side here, we won. So my heart will say a 2-1 Exeter win.
I admire the confidence. I really do. It's ties like this that make the FA Cup what it is. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm sure Adam is as well. It'll be interesting to see how obviously Forest approach it in terms of team. I imagine, like we touched on earlier, it will be 11 changes purely because of that Fulham game. But even so, even if we make 11 changes, for example, there could be a £30 million midfielder starting in midfield.
Yeah.
So it's sort of null and void really. But it should be a really cracking day really. And many thanks for coming on, Jamie. I really do appreciate that. As for everything else, we'll probably be back on Wednesday to recap the match and look ahead to the Fulham game. So until then, enjoy your Forest free weekend, which feels like an international break, weirdly. And